exciting time because now we start to see some of our trees putting on leaves, and we see some of our trees starting to flower. Just wanted to show you a little bit about what we've done. Most of these trees were actually bought at, normal retail stores, and some of them are 3 to 4 years old. Some of them are only 2 years old. We're going to start over here. Just so our viewers know, what we have here is at the very south side of our garden, and here in the northern climate, being on the south side is very useful. You're going to get a lot of sunlight. And if you zoom in here a little bit, you'll start to see that not only have these light green leaves come out, but you can actually see some blossoms. And since it's a sunny day, we hope to see some pollinators come through. And I wanted to show you a couple ideas. Oh, some birds flying overhead. Wanted to show you the different trees that we have and how we're trying to manage them. So this tree here, you'll notice relatively thick trunk, very upward facing growth. This is a pear tree. And some people may know already that if you want these pear blossoms to be pollinated so that they can actually grow fruit, we need to have more than one pear tree. But as we walk through the trees that we've got growing here, you'll see we have a little bit of variety. Next up, these are so fun. What a riot of blossoms, all sorts of flowers coming off of this tree right now. It's a beautiful time of the spring. This is a plum tree. Notice the trunk breaks into several different branches, has kind of smooth surface with all these little speckles on it, like little stripes. That is similar to the bark of a cherry tree, but this is a plum. Very open structure for this tree. You can see right here too, one thing that we did in the middle of winter is we did some pruning so that it didn't spread too far. We want to let lots of air come through here, and we want lots of opportunities for the trees to all get light. So that's why we started to prune some of this plum tree. Next, over here we have an apple tree. Again, at least 3 or 4 years old, starting to get a nice thick stalk, trunk, I should say. Notice we pruned off some of these lower spots, and we pruned the tops. Can you see up here, we had it growing even taller. Now the thing about pruning is you want to limit the growth of your trees in the middle of winter. If you make those pruning cuts in winter, then there's no natural sap flowing through the tree, so they'll handle that pruning. One thing I love about here, if we can zoom in here a little bit, we start to see those early blossoms. The cool thing about apple blossoms is they start out pink like this, really pretty, but they're starting to blossom. Oh, here's one that's even closer. They start to blossom a little later in the season, which is good, because even though it's May the 6th, and that's usually the time we can start to expect there not to be any freezing weather, we looked at the weather report. Maybe this Friday we might have overnight lows of 26 degrees. Surprising for this time of year, but if those blossoms are out, even if they're pollinated and they get hit by super freezing weather, they'll die off and we won't get fruit set on this tree. So apples being later to blossom than the plums over here actually gives them an advantage on surviving the season.
Do you happen to know what type of apple tree it is?
This apple tree here, if I remember correctly, is called Wolf River, which is kind of a heritage apple tree, and has some disease resistance that we're hoping to see, so that we don't have to spray it as much. We'd like to be as organic as possible. As we move along, now we find, again, upright, very straight branches. This is another plum tree. So hopefully this plum tree and that plum tree will blossom at the same time, and they'll be able to cross-pollinate so we get better harvest. Here you can see one of our newest trees. This tree is another apple tree, and it is just planted for a little over a year. You can see the grafting point down here at the bottom. You can see that it's still so skinny, but great little leaf coming out. I'm going to take a look at the name there. So this is a Stark Brothers tree, and this is a Liberty apple. Liberty is one of the old heritage apples that are supposed to really be resistant to a lot of pests and really do a good job even without a lot of chemical treatment. So hopefully that'll come around. Now we've got one of our few cherry trees out here. Beautiful blossoms on this one. I can understand why everybody gets so excited about cherry blossoms. And there's not a lot of other cherry trees here, but we do have, if you step out this way a little bit, look it up there. That's a wild cherry tree. It produces tons of cherries, all of them small and not very tasty, but the birds love them. Hopefully that tree will help pollinate this tree. We've got two of our older apple trees, and you can see here the difference. Put our hands around here. This is a great, nice, well-established apple tree, but there's one thing we have to do this spring, and I'm going to do it right now for this one, is this is a mistake a lot of people make, is we want to keep weed pressure away from the trees so that they don't get soil-borne infections of different pests, and this helps that. But one thing a lot of people don't understand is all of this nice mulch should actually be further away from the trunk so that it doesn't cause the trunk to start to have fungal problems. So I'm going to move some of this soil away, and if the camera comes up here a little bit more, we can see this is the ground cloth that we've set along this row of trees just to keep a little bit less of the weeds from coming in. So if we move all this mulch away from the trunk of the tree, it'll have less of a chance of having problems.
We don't have too much time left.
Okay.
About 21 seconds.
Okay. So at the end here we have another one of our plum trees. And over here, this is interesting. We have a tree that we planted that for some reason
stop it.
Plum tree, and we can edit it. Okay. All right. So this tree right here is a very special item. If you look at the stalk here, we can see it all looks dead. This is brittle. This is the original graft of this particular tree. And what happened to the tree is that the original trunk died, And now where we see growth and leaves, that's the old rootstock coming up and regenerating. Now we don't know whether this rootstock is going to be a valuable, what they call a cultivar. Cultivar just means the particular type of a fruit. So this may not grow fruit that's as tasty as the original, but if we need to, we could always use this and graft new cultivars onto that using scionwood from trees that produce better fruit. So instead of pulling up this old dead tree, we let it keep growing to see if we can still do something with that valuable rootstock. So, wanted to thank everyone for joining us while we talked about this little mini orchard here at the south end of our garden at Nat Valley Farms. Looking forward to seeing everything grow and hoping we're going to get some fruit. Thanks for joining us. This has been David and Aiden as our cameraman. Have a great day.